Hi, welcome to episode 12 of Formula Citizen. This is a recap of the Baku and Singapore Grand Prix, which took place last night. So I'm still a little bit emotional. This episode was originally going to be titled Oscar Piastri is Human. But after the incident last night in Singapore between the two McLaren drivers, I've titled this episode The Gloves Are Off. We'll talk more about that soon. Firstly, I wanted to acknowledge McLaren, the team. Congratulations on winning the 2025 Constructors Championship. They wrapped up the championship with 6 races to go, which is a testament to their complete and utter dominance in 2025. They've had 12 wins from 18 races, 7 1-2 finishes. And to think it was only a few years ago that they were at the back of the grid in financial peril. Zach Brown was the architect of a new commercially sustainable business model. They sold the McLaren Technology Centre and they leased it back to the team, secured new investment from the Bahrain Sovereign Wealth Fund as major shareholder, shifted to the Mercedes engine supply, which helped their on-track performance, recruited talent and also promoted from within. And most importantly, under Andreas Steller's leadership, they introduced a new technical structure, which I think is the key to the success, with 3 heads of department working together, Rob Marshall as chief designer, Neil Houldry as engineering director, and Peter Pramodri as aerodynamics director. This structure's created an efficient workflow, and clearly there's a shared accountability across those departments. So congratulations to McLaren. Yes, we're starting to see some performance drop off on the track, but this is related in my mind to 2 factors. One, the other teams have got additional wind tunnel time. So for example, Red Bull have 14% more wind tunnel time based on their 2024 finishing position. And they've clearly made a commitment to Max that they'll continue developing the car in 2025. The second reason McLaren have dropped off is their sole focus on 2026 and the regulatory changes that are coming. This was echoed last night in some comments made by Andreas Steller after the race when he said, we're all in for 2026. So clearly they've shifted their focus, but in the meantime, it's making it really hard for the drivers to score wins. Which could be a benefit for Oscar, given he's carrying a points lead. But again, we'll talk more about that and analyse last night's performance and impact in the next few minutes. I want to start with Baku and some key talking points. Max had his 67th win of his career, 2 wins in a row. His public comments around the championship are interesting. He's made the comment that there's a lot of points to make up, but never say never. George Russell was incredibly sick and finished P2 and clearly demonstrated really strong resilience. If you get a chance, go back and look at Baku and have a look at George Russell's onboards as he entered the pit. He was fully committed and he saved around 2.5 seconds, which ultimately secured him P2. The smooth operator, Carlos Sainz, P3. This was, in my opinion, a career-defining result. He's been quick in qualifying all year, but maybe he had to adapt his technique and his mindset, given that he's now racing in the midfield more often. And late in the race, he kind of said to his race engineer, just lead me to it, please. And then he just pumped in green sector after green sector. Kimi Antonelli, P4. It's a really good example of leadership style. Coaching a young star. Toto shifted gears at the Monza race and started to call his performances underwhelming. Probably an element of tough love there, but Kimi's responded. And we always talk about the driver having to adapt to the team, but I think this is a really good example of the team having to adapt to the driver. We've got a young 19-year-old star, and Mercedes is starting to work out how to unlock that potential and, most importantly, that consistency as well. Liam Lawson, P5, probably secured himself a place on the grid in 2026 with that result, was clearly under immense pressure at the front of the DRS train and drove beautifully without any mistakes and put the car in all the right places. The same can't be said for his performance in Singapore. Yuki Tsunoda, a season best drive for him in the Red Bull senior team, made some comments after the race about not wanting to take any risks on a 50-50 overtake and the impact that might have on Max's race, given he was leading the race at the time. And I think that's a really good example of his maturity and the fact that he's putting the team first. So that would have been noted by Red Bull. Kajar, P10, again, this guy is so consistent, continues to collect points, very rarely makes mistakes, and when he does, he's incredibly hard on himself. So he's super impressive, and I think he almost has Rookie of the Year locked down. Lewis Hamilton started P12, finished P8, looked racy throughout the weekend, was quicker than Charles Leclerc, his teammate, but the Ferrari is simply not capable of winning a race this season. It's super disappointing for Ferrari fans. Special mention to Alex Albon. He jumped out of the car and ran to the podium to celebrate with his Williams team. This guy is the ultimate team player for me. He's P8 in the Drivers' Championship, incredibly consistent this year, yet Carlos is the first of the 2 Williams drivers to secure their first podium since 2017. The team's got 101 points this season, which is more than they've collected in the past 5 years combined. They were quick in testing and pre-season testing at the start of the year, and they've delivered on that potential, which is great to see. And let's be honest, all the Formula One purists out there, are really enjoying this Williams rebuild led by James Vowles, otherwise known as Jimmy V. All right, moving on. Quick summary of Baku. Qualifying was hot with 6 red flags, super exciting. The race was pretty boring. It was dominated by a couple of DRS trains. We got a reminder that Oscar is human, crashed in qualifying and the race, and a jump start to go with it. Write it off as his first probably bad race weekend of the season. He was fortunate Lando wasn't able to capitalise and only finished P7. For me, the highlight was after the race. So if you haven't had a chance to look at this, check out Charles Leclerc's Instagram video. He shared a video of himself and Carlos Sainz driving back in the middle of the night after the race from central Italy to Monaco in a hire car. It was supported by the caption, "Just when you think things couldn't get any worse." For those of you unaware, they had some thunderstorms that prevented all the private jets from landing in Nice, and the plane got diverted, and really humbling experience for the drivers. But from my perspective, it's really nice to know that even an elite Formula One driver can have their travel plans interrupted at times. So that was a great story. Moving forward to Singapore, there is only one topic to discuss, but I will just cover off a couple of notable mentions. One is to Fernando Alonso, who finished P8. I think he was driver of the day. Pulled off some great overtakes. Carlos Sainz, P10 from the back of the grid, again showing some improved form and under race conditions. Max Verstappen, who is clearly managing some issues throughout the race. And of course, George Russell, who's in a rich run of form in 2025. Without doubt, he is a future world champion for me, possibly as early as 2026. I want to examine the race, but I want to examine the Singapore race through the theme of mindset, specifically the driver's psychology. I think this is really fascinating. So I want to break this down. The psychology of any elite athlete or sports person, including a Formula One driver, is best examined through their verbal cues, right? The words that they use and the tone that they use to deliver them. So we start looking at some of the media that's done on the Thursday leading into a race weekend, and also the comments made throughout the weekend, just to get a better read on their mindset. Oscar and Lando had very contrasting mindsets throughout the weekend in Singapore. Oscar was clearly happy with qualifying. He was on top of Lando. He was probably on top of him all weekend. He was asked about his start on the morning of the race, and he made this comment: "If I get a good start, I'll have a look." And he was talking about Max and George in front of him. "But if I don't, I'll hold position and watch them fight it out." So I'll probably describe his mindset as comfortable, right? In control, comfortable, but maybe adopting a bit of a conservative approach. Lando, on the other hand, was really unwell. He was very, very sick across the weekend. He was struggling physically, and this was expressed in his frustration and I guess some of his negative self-talk that had started to come out again. After he qualified P5, his comments were very much directed at his own driving. "I made too many mistakes. I'm just not quick enough," which we've heard throughout the year at times. And his mindset was clearly more desperate. Had a bad qualifying, wasn't feeling 100%, and is 25 points behind in the championship, and hadn't cashed in the race before in Baku as well. Oscar had a conservative start in Singapore. Again, think about his mindset. After the last race in Baku, when he jumped the lights, it meant that Lando was able to kind of gain some ground on him early and from the grippier side of the track. Antonelli in P4 was slow off the mark, which gave Lando room to kind of position his car on the inside line into turn 3, which is important in terms of this discussion. Lando had a really aggressive mindset, clearly. During the weekend, he'd commented in the media that as the season progresses, we will become more free to race. So in his mind, as the constructor's title was secure and he's behind in the championship, he had a free license to be a little bit more aggressive. The question is Oscar being given the same instructions? When I heard this comment, I had Senna's comments echoing in my mind. "If you no longer go for a gap, you are no longer a racing driver." So just keep that in mind as well. Lando made an aggressive overtake, no doubt about it. He saw a gap and he took it. He's come out post-race and made that comment where he's talked about, "No one can fault me. It was the first lap. I put my car up the inside of a huge gap. Every Formula One driver on the grid would have done the same thing." So that's his defense. Yes, they would have. Yes, it was a racing incident, but you're forgetting one thing: papaya rules. Zach has always said that the drivers are free to race hard, but they must race clean. No contact. That's papaya rules. Oscar was racing under papaya rules and Lando wasn't. And this is really, really important in terms of the analysis here and what's taken place. Lando has put his car in a vulnerable position and he's made contact with 2 cars. Not 1 car, 2 cars. And Oscar was only racing Max at this point. He was trailing Max. If you have a look on his steering wheel, he makes a small input on the wheel to go a little bit wider to give Lando space. He was well aware that he was there on the inside, and yet he still made a mess of it. There were no passing opportunities on this track. Everyone knows that. And I think Lando knew that he had to get it done on lap 1, or he had to rely on pit lane and strategy to jump Oscar. So in summary, Oscar looked left in his mirror. He knew Lando was there, but he clearly didn't expect him to send it up the inside. And in the media pen afterwards, he made a few post-race comments. He was clearly professional in the way he conducted himself. It was all about the team in that moment. But he did make one comment where he said he'll leave this race with a few learnings. And I thought that was really interesting. The learning for me is this: you don't leave the door open up the inside for your teammate, and certainly not when he's behind in the championship and he's desperate. And next time, I guarantee you, he'll slam that door shut in Lando's face. It's a wake-up call for him. He's fighting for a world championship. He's been a team player to this point, but right now, he's experiencing something that he's never experienced before. When he won his F3 championship and he won his F2 championship, he didn't experience team politics. And effectively, I won't call it a team, but this institution and the higher powers that be within McLaren that are clearly working against him. The difference for McLaren in having a British Formula One world champion in their team, it's millions and millions and millions of dollars. Oscar's a smart kid. He won't make the same mistake again. And well and truly, the gloves are off. To be honest, my summary personally is that both drivers were incredibly lucky. Lando could have very easily lost his front wing. Oscar could have very easily ended up in the wall, and it would have been a very different outcome. Got a message for Zach. Your attempts at even-handed management of the drivers is eroding away the integrity of this year's Drivers' Championship. Trust is the foundation of fandom, and the fans don't like what they're seeing. Please, just let them race. It's going to get spicy. 6 races to go, 3 sprints, which could be really important as well in terms of points. But we're clearly going to see a mindset change again now. Oscar will be far more aggressive. Lando's on notice. And the McLaren car performance means it's going to be harder and harder for them to win races moving forward. The next race we move to is at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. Everything is bigger and better in Texas. I cannot wait. Thanks for listening. Bye.